So, here we go. Audience participation. Why do we have homework? Why do we have homework? Yes,
Because we have lecture.
because we have lecture, okay?
Because we don't have enough hours in the week.
Because we don't have enough hours in the week.
The government requires it.
2 hours of homework for every
Well,
hour of lecture.
that's not why we have homework, that's how much homework we give.
One of the requirements is an accreditation requirement.
It is accreditation requirement to give homework?
Federal government
X number of
requirement.
hours of educational time, and you can only give 4 hours during the day, and so it's addressed in the accreditation process.
And, no, okay, in which document? And is that in all accrediting agencies?
Well, it's in ASICS.
I want them to do part of it themselves.
Okay,
I don't want to have to do it all for them.
all right. So there's various, let's see, what are we gonna call that? There's various herbal legends out there as to why we have homework. All right, going all the way from, we don't have time to do it ourselves, to somebody is telling us to do it. All right, well, what about this one? What dictates how much homework we give? Now, you say 2 hours for every hour. Where does it say that?
I thought that was Department of Education.
See, that's, again, that's another urban legend.
It came from Carnegie Mellon,
Carnegie
that was
Mellon.
their
Yeah, but
standard.
isn't it Erica?
It's in the Carnegie Mellon standard, but does that apply to high schools, or does it apply to colleges and universities?
Yes.
No. All right? See, there's all these urban legends out there. Do we use homework? And I'm just not gonna leave you hanging. Do we use homework for formative assessment, summative assessment, or both?
Can be used for both.
Formative, isn't it?
I'm just posing the questions here.
Are neither. if
I'm
you-
saying, do we, Coleman University,
Actually, it's normally used for evaluation, grading, rather
Okay.
than assessment.
okay,
Assessment has to do with looking at learning outcomes.
all right? All right, so do we at Coleman University use it for formative or neither? Do we use it for neither?
If you don't assess the homework, then you're using it for neither.
What's the words?
See?
When you're putting a grade on it, you're not assessing it, you're evaluating it. Can you use the evaluation you put on the homework as an assessment tool? Absolutely,
Okay, should you?
absolutely.
All right, so, now why, okay, and I have one more, I think. Does our present homework system cause us problems?
Yeah.
And what are those problems?
Makes me unreasonable, I want them to turn stuff in.
We're asking students, what's the population of our students, what's the percentage of our students that actually turn in their homework or do homework?
My class is low. I really can't get them to crack open the book.
60-70%.
Yeah, we rarely can get them to crack open a book, all right? What I have here is not a failure to communicate, but a few documents that are gonna talk about some of these things, some of these questions, all right? That top document, yes, that's that Carnegie Mellon, why do I keep saying Carnegie Mellon? That Carnegie Mellon Institute thing where supposedly we got this requirement that says that for every hour of lecture, we have 2 hours of homework, okay? If you take a look at the second document, which I like the words a lot better, it also talks about, all right, credit hours, etc. But if you look at the paragraph that's titled Post-Secondary Credit Systems, all right, you'll see that on the bullet, that first bullet that talks about one lecture, they don't call it homework. What do they call it? What do they call it? Student preparation time, all right? Now,
Most don't do that.
if you remember, we had that old thing that we called, what did we used to call homework? When, in the days of KL, what did we call homework? We called them ELPs, right? Extended learning,
External learning.
external learning, what does the P stand for? Project or something like that. And why does she call it that? Because she came from the K through 12 education community.
It's actually enhanced learning.
Enhanced learning process, all right? Which was supposed to supplement your learning outside the classroom, all right? I tend to like more the words preparatory, all right? Because what does that get the students to do?
Get ready.
Look at it.
Get ready for when they come in for that next session, all right? Now, should homework be part of, again, so, and that's going back to the question of formative assessment or summative assessment. Should homework be a critical grading factor in the course?
If we're giving them homework so that they can meet the learning objectives, absolutely.
Okay, but now, should we put a lot of weight on it?
Not a lot.
All right, yeah, the thought, if you take a look at these documents, the thought is that it should, any formative assessment, if we're using it for formative assessment, which is what you're alluding to, Charlie, then formative assessment should have little to no grade value. Because what are we using it for? We're using it to assess the student's learning and provide any correction or assistance if needed.
Our students won't do something if they're not being paid in points. Won't do it.
Not at home anyway, but in class.
Some of it in class. It's not worth getting off their phone unless it's worth some points.
Bill isn't saying though that we don't give them points, he's saying that we don't weight the points as heavily.
Right, that's what I'm saying, all right? It's not geared to be a major factor in the, because again, if homework is being used for formative, it's being used to assess ongoing. And if you take a look at some of the literature there, it should be, all right, it should be, what's the word I'm looking for? Scaffolded. All right, in other words, you should be able to see improvement in the homework as the course is going, ongoing.
If you're using the homework for prep, then maybe it shouldn't have much weight at all because they're just prepping for your lecture or the next assignment.
You look perplexed.
Well, we have these osmosis learners, that if I come and sit close to Charlie in the classroom, it will ooze over, and I won't have to read a textbook or do any homework, or even take a test.
Okay.
Osmosis.
Which do you think would have, which would you think would provide a greater incentive for the student, as Jim says, since they never open the books, which one do you think would provide greater incentive for the student to open the book? If we consider it as preparatory work, or if we consider it as homework, which is after the fact, or ELPs, people that use that word. Yes?
Jason started implementing an educational theory that I'm beginning to be converted to. He would, with the class, they would come in and he would say, okay, I now want you to do blah, 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 blah. Without lecturing, without just do this. And of course, that would immediately give them the impetus, the motivation to say, how do I learn how to do that? And then they would actually become self-motivated as they're supposed to be. Current students do not fit Knowles postulates. They don't do it,
So how do we fix it?
break their legs.
No, we can't do that. We
And
can't
that doesn't
do that.
help.
Huh?
Well,
That doesn't-
so, you know, just thinking about a couple of things that we talked about even just a minute ago. There seems to be a contradiction. If you want people to do 8 hours homework, but we deliberately set out to give it very low points, we're kind of removing a lot of incentives. So if they know, if they put in 8 hours, they can get 2% of their final grade. And if they don't do anything at all, they can not lose more than 2%. It just seems like I can see why a lot of them just don't bother to do it, because they figure they're not losing a lot. And they're right. Whereas a big 25% project they're gonna do.
So why am I getting to all of this? All right. Do we have a homework policy?
Policy.
Do we have a homework policy?
Yeah, I think we have a policy.
What is it?
It's convoluted.
I think part of where homework comes in, Bill, is when you're looking at the hours of off-class activities,
Right?
reading makes up a big part of that. And if we're basing the class on the textbook, they're supposed to read the various chapters because we selected that textbook for the course. Now, homework, in my opinion, tells me if they've read the chapter. Because a lot of these chapters, they can either find the answers in the textbook or do additional research.
Yeah, but homework, okay, so the homework that we presently do is based on after the fact,
Not all.
Not necessarily.
No.
right?
The homework issue is migrated into two different camps. People that believe homework is something that you do outside the realm of a classroom to prepare. So, in my own mind, homework contains the word preparatory. The problem is that students have migrated from a earning environment to a entitlement environment. And that if they see the word preparatory, it says, okay, I can do it or I don't have to do it. Homework connotates something that they have to deliver, a deliverable. And if we want our students to deliver having read the material so that they can learn what it is that they don't know, that is in essence a preparation for the classroom. They can really focus in on that which is a challenge or difficulty or something that they didn't understand. So it is homework, but it is preparatory, in my opinion.
Let me add on to that, Bill. One way I look at it is if I pick a textbook, the author themselves on the material has done the research of what it takes to learn the material. So when I get a new class, I usually give them everything the author gives them in their test materials and so on as homework. And then what I do is I tie the homework into their midterm and final, and I always pick topics out of their homework and assignments they did for the midterm and final, and I may redo the question in a certain different way. So in my classes, I don't really have that much of an issue with homework because they understand that in order for them to prepare for the midterm and final, they need to do the homework. And then I believe that helps them learn the material. And so I'm not going to second guess the author of the book.
No, but my point was based on the fact that we start week one, the students have nothing. And then what is the homework based on in week one? The material that we covered in week one. All right?
Here again, okay, as you know, there are some institutions that say, before you come to first class,
Right,
you best do this amount of reading.
right.
Okay, but in other institutions, you're right, they come to class absolutely knowing nothing. And so, some of us would assign homework to, number one, reaffirm what was done in the classroom. But in addition to that, having them do homework, which is really a preparatory
Right.
for week 2.
And that's the kind of, that's my thought, is that our homework should, number one, yeah, because we have to make up for that week 1 stuff. So how do we get them to read what we read for week 1? We have to provide some homework. But then again, we should also prepare them for week 2 in taking a look at what's coming ahead. And so it should be split. Why all of this is because, again, there's, as when I went through those first slides, there's a ton of different answers on homework. All right? So what do I suggest? I suggest is that since we don't have one, we all come up, we, as in you guys, come up with what you want homework to be and what you want homework to do. And unless I hear it from Bruce or Norbert, that 2 hours per every 1 hour of lecture shit goes out the window. Because right now, we're assigning homework based on, okay, somebody said that we have to give you 2 hours of homework for every hour lecture, all right? Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a hell of a lot of reading, and then based on some formula that we gave up, if we don't have a big textbook, I'm gonna give you a certain amount of writing. And in most cases, just to make up 8 hours, we're giving them freaking busy work.
And just a big moot point, ACICS as an accreditor does require that be put
And I'm
into
gonna,
the syllabus.
well, they require that we put in a syllabus how we assess giving them homework, all right? If we are, as Bruce is ready to do, give up on ACICS, that 2 hours shit goes away.
You know, when I assign homework, I really don't pay attention to the number of hours, but rather having about 15 plus years of seeing students try to learn statistics.
Mhm.
And I see this deer in the headlight looks time and time and time again of students that come to class not prepared. And then, so I think in my mind that I go through this process of trying to teach them what was in that book. But then I'm thinking students leave that classroom, go home, and say, what the heck did I learn in class? So they get confused when they go home. As opposed to, if they would have read that chapter, then they know what it is that they don't know, come to class focused on that which is not understood very well. I've seen that they have gone away far, far better off than not having been prepared to begin with. And that's not born from regulations, but rather born from 15 years of looking at students' faces,
Right.
trying to understand the material that they're presenting.
And that's what I'm saying, we need to get, right now, we're driven by 2 for 1. We should be driven by what we've seen it takes for the student to learn the material. That's what we should be driven by.
And some students learn a heck of a lot faster than others, and
Right.
others learn.
Which is another point, I mean, if you read, and the thing is that, yes, we define a certain amount of homework, but every student is not going to be able to learn that thing given that much homework. Some are gonna need less, and some are gonna need more.
Yeah, and there's also the reality factor. If you give a busy person 8 hours worth of homework for 2 points, a lot of them are just not gonna bother. But if you give them 90 minutes homework, they actually might.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more realistic.
I think just boiling it down to a nutshell with the 2-hour commitment per lecture hour. Like you mentioned, it was either read a lot, do homework based on that, or write a bunch of papers. The way I look at it, books are important, and I think the student should be encouraged to read the book,
Right.
especially if that's the basis of the class. Papers are important too, but not as important.
Right.
And if you're going to have papers in a class, my opinion is it should be a high-value paper to make it a incentive for the student to try on the paper, not just make it a weekly, bi-weekly
Right.
type paper report. So I think if we think in those terms about which things they're doing at home that make the most impact to that student, we should concentrate on those for any homework that we assign and keep the values at the right level.
For many years, my student, trying to compliment me at the end of the course would say, you know, I never had to open the book once because Charlie gives such good lectures. And when I hear that, I just want to throttle them. Because then they're coming, education is not a passive experience.
Right.
I just found my DVD again. Jason gave it to me. It's a guy who was selected as the top educator in the United States. And his first lecture to educators, he said, you must tell your students that education is painful. Because education is change, and change is painful, and it takes work. And I don't know that students today understand those principles.
You know, it's an interesting fact. Having spent 30 years, some years in the Navy, in the short time I've been teaching, I've never said the word no pain, no gain. So much more time in education.
I don't like to read a book. Come on, man. I've got other things I want to do. But if I want to get from where I am to where I want to be, then I have to undertake that pain to get there. Young people today are so different than they've ever been before. I did that graduate work so that I would understand the new students. And all of a sudden, and I told my class last term that you guys don't even fit that mold anymore. And I can't keep up with you. The change in students is just.
It's interesting, I come from the graphic artist side, and I've probably never read the book all the way through. I may do small snippets, but I'm a visual learner. I'll go on YouTube and look at videos, I'll listen to someone lecture on it, I'll sit through somebody else's class, but the book is, I want to say, almost useless to me. And I learn well in that respect. I wonder if our homework should not necessarily always be reading, or whether it should be videos, whether it should be interactive presentations, because I think when you have audio and visual and other things going on, even if you made it more like a game to be the learning. Now, who produces those is the question.
Right.
But if they had that experience, if you told them to go on YouTube and watch these 2 videos on whatever, they would do it. They probably wouldn't read the chapter.
Hey, what if they went on and say, when you come back on Wednesday, I want you to have written Hello World in Python. Print it out for me, make a copy of it, bring it in. And I'm not gonna tell you how to do it.
Okay.
Unfair would be what you'd hear.
And our students don't want, most of the students hate if you tell them, go Google it or go YouTube.
Yeah, I understand. I wonder though if we had set up places in web class, you can certainly put videos that they can watch. And I know with a lot of students, they're glad to watch a video, but they don't want to read.
I know for me,
Yeah.
in cybersecurity or
Yeah,
programming,
doesn't work.
I would never watch a
Okay.
freaking video.
Okay.
I would never watch a freaking video.
Well, unfortunately, that's not how they feel in everything.
I know, but because it's easy because they don't want to read. But when they get in that workplace, all right, they're not going to be able to. It's going to be a lot easier for them to open up a book than it is for them to watch a video. Because their boss is going to go, what the hell are you doing?
One of the things in my classes, it's preparatory, but it also gets them, and I know they don't do the complete reading, but it actually gets them to read defining information by making it preparatory and everything else. Because if they get the right answer, they found it, they know how to search a written document. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get them to learn. While not telling them you're learning that.
So where does this go? I would like us to come up with what we want homework to be and what we want homework to do.
Well, I think that's,
Not thinking about that 2-for-1 crap.
yeah, I think it's a good initiative, I think it's a good thing to think about. Because right now the burden is so onerous in some classes. And if you make, they're not doing it, then it's all it is, on the syllabus.
Right. I mean, if they even talk about, you know, you could even, let's say for a class, just have them as part of homework. Give me a brief one-paragraph summary of what chapter 2 is about.
I
You know
felt
what they'll
like
do, Bill, is they'll go to the back of the book where it says a summary and recap that.
Oh,
At
that's
least they
good.
looked
They
at
read,
it.
they read and wrote.
But,
summary.
but yeah, they had to open up the book,
Yeah.
all right?
And flip.
Those 30% that won't do homework, they'll do that. The other 70% will probably, they may not read it, but they may skim through the chapter to see what the major headings are, and maybe read it one sentence. But at least it gets them to open a book and start thinking about what they're gonna be learning in the next lecture.
For a long time, I used Moodle quizzes to check their reading. It wasn't effective. So I went back to doing a vocabulary tracker. I give them a list of words. I want a brief definition. And I take the bold-faced words in the chapter and put them in order, and I tell them they're in order. If you just open the book, find each one of the bold-faced words and write a little snippet about it, you've got the job done. For those who do it, they come out all right. For those who ignore it, not so much.
I wonder if, when they first come to class, you have 10 minutes where the students talk about the homework and cover what was in the homework, just so it catches up the people who didn't do it, so that they're prepped for the lecture anyway, if our goal is to have them learn.
There was a student that came into Sarah's office the other day, and the issue was, they opened up the Windows Server book, and it was nothing but step after step after step of configuring stuff. All right. And it was just, why am I in this class? Well, the reason is simple. If you get out there, and if that's gonna be your job, you're going to have to open up that book and follow along with that book on how to configure a server or what have you. You can YouTube it, but that's freaking useless, all right? So you need that, because you can't have that YouTube running while you're configuring that server, all right? In some cases, I say that because in some cases, we're not making the students aware of what's involved in what they're doing.
I did that yesterday when I got home. Netflix on Dish wasn't working correctly. So I said, I'm gonna get my Fire Stick hooked up to Netflix. Well, I had no idea how to go about doing it. So I Googled it, got a list of steps, and 5 minutes later, I've got it up and going. But you're right, the students who won't look at that stuff, they're never gonna get that far.
So that's what I would like, for you guys to get together and come up with a homework / policy guidance, what we want homework to be, what we want it to do, and that. And when Bruce gets back on Monday, I'm gonna talk to him about this 2-for-1 hour crap. Yes?
After our discussion today, I really think the way I'm gonna go is I'm going to suggest that they read chapter 2 and tell them, when you get here, I expect you to be able to A, B, C, D. And if you're not, I'll help you. Or if you broke it, we'll try to fix it for you. Try to get them engaged somehow.
Well, like Doug suggested, I think that's a good idea. You know, if you start off sort of informally talking to people and they all chime in, and the ones who didn't read it they don't take part, you know who they are. But it does set an expectation that in the class you're gonna talk about the reading, and I don't ever make it real formal. I don't give them quizzes because it's like they're not gonna do well. But that conversation does set an expectation. And some of the students are actually intrigued that other people have read some arcane book on, you know, Egypt or religion or whatever. They didn't know that their peers would actually do that. And so sometimes you see a little bit of movement there. It's not peer pressure, it's just peer example.
Well, and you can also set up a reward system. Johnny, would you like to, let's project your version of Hello World?
Yeah.
Some students will take that as a positive motivation, they get praised. Some will take it as a fear motivation, so they'll try to get it done in case I call on them. Thinking back, I had elementary school teachers that did that. Come up to the board.
Final points, if you take a look at this document here. Bullet 3 and 4. Failure to complete or turn in homework on time should not affect the student's academic score unless the work being done outside of class is part of a larger summative assessment. Students should be given additional opportunities to improve, complete, and resubmit homework as an additional demonstration opportunity when reasonable and appropriate, so.
Some students object to that, though.
Object to what?
They object to other students being able to, I know that when I taught HTML5 last time, I had 3 students who couldn't figure out how to post their websites for
Right.
the first couple of weeks, and they said later on, you know, I know this was due. Unfortunately, if they said it in class, I would have said yes. They said, I know it was due here, but can I turn it in late? And approximately half the class said very sharply, as one, no.
Right, but how many points were assigned, how much value was assigned to that homework?
It was a fair amount of value
Yeah,
in that class.
and that's why,
Mhm.
that's why.
Years ago, when I taught RPG, I routinely
That was years ago.
I would routinely get their program in, and there was like a big program every week, and I would grade it in detail, hand it back to them, and I'd always say, by next class meeting, if you want to upgrade it and resubmit it, I'll regrade it for you. But if you didn't turn it in at all, that doesn't apply. I'm not sure I wanna go back to that, because then I'm grading everything twice.
But if it's, again, if it's just, you know, if it's not one of those 8-hour things, then it becomes a lot easier.
One thing I noticed teaching TCP/IP for the first time last month, and Rob does homework differently than I do. He had the homework questions in there, and they were unlimited tries. And the student could take the homework assignment over and over and over and over again until they got 100% on it. I looked at the count on that, and normally I would see, like, if I take a normal class, I might see 12 attempts, 18 attempts. In this class, I saw 56 attempts, 60 attempts. So, and there was no limit on the time. It was just, they had 10 weeks to do all the homework. I think that's kind of effective, because he put 10 points on the homework, which is very minor point values, but there was activity. And activity is friction, and friction is learning. So I think that stuff like that on homework really helps out if you don't put too many limits on it.
Right, yeah.
I want to add on to that. I totally agree. One additional issue that I've noticed is that there's some situations where students will deliberately wait until after some submittals return on papers that have been evaluated. They collaborate, collude, and then that individual who turns it in late has an added advantage. But leads to the conclusion that any type of process by which they make an attempt is learning.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and again, it's, if it's minimal value, it doesn't hurt. So that's what I would like you guys to take on.
Sounds good.
Let's fix this homework. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
See you next week. Yes, next week is the last week in this series, all right? Dominic, I know he has polled the faculty for what we want next, all right? Now,
Yeah.
this is a combination of you guys imparting your knowledge, or you guys coming up with stuff that I will do. So-
One volunteer to present, and we've got a couple of ideas of topics that people want, not very many.
Okay.
So, yeah, before next week, if I don't hear more by, well, tomorrow's Friday, well, I'll probably send out a reminder to come up with more volunteers and more topics. But, you know, it's not for, not everybody wants to do, this game.
Just tell them they're still continuing free lunch.
Use that as an incentive.
All right. Grazie, grazie.
Thank you.